everyone. How are you tonight? I think I'm on live. Yes. Okay, my name is Shawn Gombos, and I'm going to be visiting with you tonight about gratitude. Now it says, okay, yeah, there we are. We've had a little bit of some technical stuff going on, so I'm sorry about that. I'm just trying to get myself, okay. I hope everybody's there. I hope you are doing okay tonight. We got a little bit of a late start, but we're going to start right now. So I am Shawn Gombos, and I have been retired for 2.5 years. 2.5 years. And prior to that, I was a teacher in St. Cloud for 19 years. And then I became an administrator for St. Cloud for a while, and then I moved to Buffalo, and I did that for the last part of my career. I spent most of my time in elementary, but I did do assistant principalship at Apollo High School here in St. Cloud. So I've had quite a bit of experience with all the ranges. I missed middle school, and I don't know, maybe that's someone telling me that that's an okay thing to miss. I don't know. So, but what I want to talk with you about tonight is the name of my talk is Gratitude is Not Just for Thanksgiving Dinner Anymore. You know how we all sit around and we say, oh, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that. And that's great. But there is a way that you can practice gratitude every day of the year. And you may already be doing this. So I don't want you to feel like I'm coming across, I'm going to teach you what to do and you have to do it this way and all of that stuff. I'm just going to chat with you. It's going to feel like more of a conversation. And I'm going to share with you what has worked for me. And I'm going to go back a little bit and talk with you about my story and what led me to the practice of gratitude. It was about 17 years ago, and I was teaching at that time, and I had a particularly difficult class, and I was struggling a little bit with, I couldn't quite figure out how to get that to work. And so at that time, I had no work-life balance whatsoever, absolutely none. I lived and I breathed and I slept and I ate my job. So that, looking back, that was an indication of what was to happen and what was to come for me. It was November of that school year in 2003 that I drove to work, and I was nervous about going to work because I was having so much trouble with figuring out my students. And so I got in the parking lot and I couldn't get out of the car. And physically I could, but mentally, I was unable to open the car door. I was unable to go into the building. So I sat there, I called my teaching partner and I said, you got to come out and get me. And so I muddled through that day. I, to this day, still don't know how. Went to the doctor, couldn't speak at the doctor's office. I had basically a full-blown shutdown. And scared me to death, but I was it was almost like I was numb, and I was too numb to be even really scared. So it became very clear to me that after that visit to the doctor that I needed to do something. I needed to get out of that vicious cycle that I had myself in at work. And so I ended up taking a medical leave, and I spent the rest of the school year figuring out who I was and what was I going to do. And I needed medical intervention as well at that time. So sometimes I think, when we talk about the benefits of gratitude, there are benefits and people feel those, and it can really ease symptoms of depression. But there are folks who need to be on medication for that. So I am not about to say that if you just practice gratitude, you won't have any problems. That's not the point of my talk. So anyway, so I took that leave and basically just had to find myself again. And I got transferred to a different school, which I requested. And a principal took a chance on me. And I got my feet under me again and I was teaching third grade and was just so grateful that I was back on my feet. And then an interesting opportunity came by for me to enter administration. And so that's how that door got open for me. So that's my story, not to air my dirty laundry, but I would like you to be able to kind of get a sense for the nexus of what was happening to me and why that spurred on my practice of gratitude. So that's kind of where I'll start. Now, what I'd like to talk about today is some things that hopefully by the end of my conversation with you, you will have some takeaways or some things that you can refer back to when you're talking to someone else, perhaps, about this conversation. You're going to know, or you're going to be exposed to a little bit of the brain science behind what gratitude does for people and how it impacts your brain. And lots of research on this. And I'm not by any means going to go into a full depth thing, but I will kind of talk to you about some studies that have been done and then what is actually happening in your brain when you are focusing on gratitude. Then I will share with you the foundations, what I feel are the foundations of a healthy gratitude practice. And I'll give you maybe some hints about establishing a gratitude practice or strengthening one that you may already have. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about how can I incorporate gratitude into my family, my community, and my work. And so those are the takeaways for tonight. And hopefully I'll hit the mark on all of those. Before we really get started here, I would like to put our minds at ease and shut away the events of the day. I'm going to shut away all this technology difficulty. So what I'd like you to do is I'm just going to go through kind of a quick, seated meditation here. Not too long, but just kind of to get us all on the same page with where our minds are. So wherever you're sitting, if you're sitting in a chair, just make sure you're comfortable in your seat there and put both of your feet, if you are sitting in a chair where your feet can reach the ground, put both of your feet on the floor. But if you're sitting cross-legged on a couch or something, just that's fine. Just make sure that you're comfortable in that position. Okay. So I'm in an upright chair and I've got my feet on the ground. Okay. Sit up straight. And you can either keep your eyes open a little bit or you can shut them. I always have to shut mine because I'm looking around and I get distracted and there's that and then there's this and so I shut my eyes. Now just breathe normally, but just start to notice your breath and do some inhales and some exhales. And do some of those, like 5 more on your own. Notice what happens when you inhale. Put your tummy out, have a puppy belly. And when you exhale, pull your stomach in. Inhale, puppy belly. Exhale, pull your stomach in. Keep doing that. Pay attention to your breath. But you may be experiencing some random thoughts that are coming into your mind. That happens. Our brain is busy. Don't judge those random thoughts. Notice them and let them go. Just see a visual of you kind of releasing them from your hand. Keep your deep breathing. Okay, now open your eyes or heighten your gaze. Hopefully, we're in a different place. Okay. Did you know that you can rewire your brain by saying 3 things that you're grateful for a day for 21 days? Your brain will rewire itself. 3 things you're grateful for 21 days will rewire your brain. That's amazing. Let's talk about that brain. Of course, I always think of the scarecrow from The Wizard of Oz. I will while away the hours, conferring with the flowers, thinking about the rain. Do, 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 do. I love that song. So the brain is the nerve center. It's the big kahuna. That's where everything starts and where everything begins and where everything happens. Dr. Alex Korb did a paper called Gratitude Brain, the Gratitude Brain. And he discovered that the brain, when you are feeling grateful or practicing gratitude, that you actually bodies will have less aches and pains. You'll feel very successful. You will have feelings of determination. You will have an ability to concentrate better. You have more enthusiasm, energy galore, sleep, creativity returns, and you become more resilient. So that's just an example of what happens in your brain when you are thinking about being grateful. Now, how does the brain do that? Here's just a very cursory, covering of that. For example, the hypothalamus. This is your sympathetic nerve system, okay? And so the National Institute of Health followed brain scans of people who were thinking about things that they were grateful for. And when people did that, more blood started to flow to your hypothalamus, which impacts your metabolism. It impacts your sleeping. It impacts your stress levels. So just by thinking and internalizing those feelings of gratitude, your hypothalamus, sympathetic nerve system will start to give you huge benefits. Neurotransmitters, dopamine. You may have heard of dopamine. That is a chemical that helps send signals between the cells in your brain. And it's called the happy signal. And the reason they call it is because it's actually a reward transmitter. So when you think of things that are pleasant or things that you are, for our purposes tonight, things that you are grateful for, your dopamine starts to act and it's like, hey, I really like that. I like that. Let's do more of that. Let's do more of that. So the dopamine is working in overtime to help your brain figure out, I like that. What can I do so that I can have more of that feeling? Your brain is very busy. It can be very, very distracted. There is something that happens in your brain. It's called confirmation bias. This is interesting. So, for example, if you think, this is, just kind of a quickie. If you think that maybe someone doesn't care for you or doesn't like you, okay, and you've convinced yourself that that's the truth, what will happen then inside your brain is you will start to look for things that validate your thoughts. So you will start to look for things that person does that indicate to you, see, she doesn't like me. He doesn't like me. Okay, that's called confirmation bias. That's pretty powerful when you think about it. It has power in the negative aspect of confirmation bias, but let's flip the turn here and think about the positive aspects of confirmation bias. So if you are looking and noticing things that you are feeling grateful for, and you practice that, and you keep that moving inside of your heart and your soul and your mind, what will happen is your brain will engage in confirmation bias. And all of a sudden, your brain says, let's look for more of those things. And pretty soon, they're just going to be popping up everywhere. things that you haven't noticed before, things that you're grateful for. It's an amazing, and it's just an amazing thing that happens. I've experienced that many times in my life since I've started practicing gratitude. I'm going to talk a little bit about that later. But that's another part of the brain that's working, is that confirmation bias. And your prefrontal cortex, that's the part where the left brain and the right brain join up together, okay? And it supports your emotions, your decision making. That's where all that stuff happens, in the prefrontal cortex. And when you are doing things that are positive and you're feeling good and you're feeling successful, that prefrontal cortex is the engine that drives every decision you make, and your well-being and your emotional security, all of those things. Now, there's the limbic part of the brain, that's the part where you're like, I got to get out of here. It's fight or flight. And you've probably all heard of that. They're probably not even telling you anything new. But the limbic system then is where, when that's in charge, we are not making good decisions. And we are having difficulty controlling our emotions. The prefrontal cortex, when you are practicing gratitude, specifically keeps you in that prefrontal cortex more than in your limbic system. I found that out today, as a matter of fact. We had our kitchen redone, and we were putting all the stuff back in the cupboards today. And my husband, Jim, bless his soul for living with me, he works very differently than I do in situations like that. He has been up at night thinking about where all the stuff is going to go. And me, I don't approach things like that. I'm just, well, let's just start putting stuff in and we'll see what we can do and we'll rearrange if we have to. Well, that was a challenge for me today, and it was a struggle for me because I just wanted to do it my way. Well, that happens. And I was getting in my limbic system because it was taking too long, I thought, because he was thinking and he has to be methodical about it. And so then everything he did, I thought, he's just being slow on purpose. He's just being, he's just not even letting me do anything. He's controlling this. He's going to be all powerful and not let me do this. So that confirmation bias was there. Then I said to myself, you're going to be presenting tonight on gratitude and confirmation bias. Maybe you ought to practice some of it, So I just said to myself, what am I learning? What can I learn? What can I learn from this style of work? And that calmed me down, and I was able to start to see a little bit more of the wisdom in his approach. And I moved to the prefrontal cortex, where everything started to feel like, okay, this doesn't have to be a big deal. So that was a perfect example, and I'm sure you have many examples of your own too. So that brain is busy, and this is just a very surface, introduction to that brain stuff. And I know that it's so interesting, and a lot of teachers and educators are really learning more about that. And I think the brain, wow, we just do not know how much untapped stuff is in our brain, and how we have no idea. And I just love learning about the capacity of the brain. So the foundations for a gratitude practice. That's what I'm going to talk about next. First of all, it's a skill. Okay, it's a skill. Now, when you first start a practice of gratitude, it's almost like working out. It's like a muscle. And when let's say you first start working out, and let's say you're going to run a marathon. Okay. And you've never done anything like that before. And so you start training, right? And all those muscles in your body that you are using when you're training and you're going on your runs and all of those things, they're like, what is going on? Wow. And the more you practice and the more you train your muscles, they respond. That's the same thing with the practice of gratitude. It's like a muscle. It doesn't always happen automatically. Most of the time, I can figure out, I'll see something and say, oh, I'm so grateful for that. But it takes practice. And that, I think, is a thing that surprised me when I said, you know what, I've got to redo my life here, and I've got to figure out how I'm gonna manage all of this. And I said, you know, I'm gonna be grateful. Okay, well, yeah, I had to practice. So it's a skill. So that might help you too, though, when you're starting to establish your practice, that it is like a muscle, and you will train it. And sometimes it gets sore and it doesn't respond. That's the same with practicing gratitude. Some days you just don't have it, and that just happens. Um, it's a helpful tool also to how you perceive life when it comes at you. All the things that are happening in your day on a day-to-day basis. If you're looking at things through a gratitude lens, how things come at you changes. And that's a gift. That's a gift. And I think that's my favorite part, because I look at life now through a different lens. I don't look at it the same way that I used to. And so that's a part of the gift of gratitude too. And it's a way to engage in that virtuous cycle, or that confirmation bias thing that we talked about. It's a way for you to have control over that. Things that you're grateful for, things that you are thinking are amazing, those kinds of things. If you're focusing on those, then again, that brain is going to start looking for more. And if you've ever experienced that in your life, it's an amazing feeling. It is. It's an amazing feeling. So those are kind of the foundations. You know, it's a skill. It helps you interpret life through a different lens. And those things are the motivators for your practice. Those things will continually remind you, oh yeah, that's what I'm doing this for. This is why I'm practicing this. Now I'll tell you a couple of things that gratitude is not, okay? Gratitude is not mandatory. It's not mandatory. You don't have to do this. You really don't. So, you know, it's kind of like when you're teaching, you know, and the principal gets up and says, okay, we're going to start another initiative. And you think, oh gosh, another thing. What am I going to do? What are they taking away? Oh, nothing. Oh, yeah. Okay. So that's the same thing with this. How you approach this is going to make all the difference in the world. But, you know, if you approach it where someone's making me do this, or, well, she said I was supposed to do this, so I better do this, you know, that might not serve you in the long run. Okay. And another thing that I really think is important is, and Shylla, I'm way over my time already. I am so sorry to say that. Shylla's on the phone with me, so.
You're just fine.
Okay. I knew I'd go over too.
No, love listening to you, so keep on going.
Okay.
Great stuff.
So this is really important. When you're practicing gratitude, gratitude is not a comparison. It's not a vehicle for comparison. So, you know, there may be times where, like, if you're on the highway and you are driving and you come across an accident, you may think, oh, I'm glad that's not me, right? And those are normal feelings. I think those are normal. But we get into a little trouble then when we start to say, well, I have this and this and this and this that I'm grateful for, and you do not, right? So the comparison, when you start comparing your life with other people's lives, that is it's an absolute thief of joy. It just takes the joy right out of it. So think about that in your daily life too, comparing yourself to coworkers, comparing yourself to siblings, comparing yourself to people that you meet in the grocery store. That comparing, and this is Brene Brown talked about this, that comparing is a thief of joy. And I think of times in my life where I compared myself, it just did not serve me very well. So we've got gratitude's a skill. It helps you change the way you perceive life. It also helps you change the way you share things in your life. It helps you move in that virtuous circle cycle. So I'm grateful for this. And then pretty soon your brain starts to respond. Hey, here's another thing. Hey, you missed that. There's another thing. And it's not a mandatory thing. And it's not a way to compare your life to others. So those are kind of some things about the foundation of the practice. So now, how do I start? How do I strengthen my practice? What are some tips that you have, that I can share with you about, here's what's happened to me. Here's what I know, in my history. It's been about 17 years where I can say that I've actively practiced gratitude. And I didn't really know what that meant until I started practicing yoga last March. And I understand now why they call it practicing yoga. You bring something different to the yoga mat every single day. You may do the same practice routine, but you bring something different every single day to the mat. That's what it is with gratitude. It's never, I don't feel that, oh, there, I've mastered gratitude. I got it. It's all good, right? It's a constant practicing of when different situations come at you. How am I going to respond? How am I going to do this? And so when you start a practice of anything, the most important thing is figuring out your why. Why would I do this? You might say, Shawn, why are you talking about this? And why do I have to do this? That examining your why is what will always be the foundational tool for your whole practice. My why was 17 years ago when I lost myself and I realized I had to start looking at things in a different way. And so that's my why. And I vividly remember it, even though it was almost 20 years ago, I vividly remember. And I can look back now and be grateful for what happened to me. Now that took me a while. That doesn't just come automatically, but I can be grateful for what happened to me. And so that is my why. That's my main nugget of motivation. Okay, so you got to kind of sift through that and figure that out for yourself if you want to start or strengthen your own practice. Whenever you begin a new anything, there are things that happen when you're starting to do that. For example, let's just do learning how to ride a bike. Okay. So when you first start, you're excited and you just know it's going to go great and you're going to get this new bike and you're going to be able to go wherever you want. And there's all that excitement and that adrenaline. And then as you start to practice or like work out, you know how some days it's really hard to do it, right? And you make up excuses. And then, I swear, if I lost weight for every excuse I made not to work out, I'd be a stick person. I mean, seriously, I can think of any excuse, you wouldn't believe it. So, that establishing that habit, it's really messy and it's a lot of emotional ups and downs. You're very excited. You got a lot of adrenaline. Then you go into a dip. What am I doing this for again? Oh gosh, I don't know if I can continue doing this. So be prepared for that. Embrace that. And say, this is just part of it. This is just part of it. And don't let that scare you. Okay. Because that's with any new habit that you are forming. And it'll be messy, but it'll be joyous and beautiful and wonderful too at the same time. Okay. Really good practice is journaling, writing, doing anything with pen to paper. That also involves your brain. And it cements the ideas in your brain. It just makes them stronger and richer. So there might be some journaling that you would like to do. Now, I'm in the Office Depot, in the school supply aisle. I got pens, I got journals, I got everything, thinking this is going to do it. So I have a stack of, journals on my nightstand that I've never written in. But I thought that would work, right? So basically what I ended up doing, which I don't know, it's just kind of surprising to me, on my Facebook page, every day at the end of the day, I write gratitude and I write down what I'm grateful for that day. Now, I don't know why I chose Facebook. I have no idea, but it's something I've been doing for years. And it's a way for me to end the day. And it's good. It's a good thing for me. But probably the most important thing that you have to remember is you have to do what works for you. So, I mean, if driving to work is your gratitude time, great. During your lunchtime, when you're exercising, when you're shopping, all of these times in your life, the day-to-day moments, there are ways to incorporate that practice. And getting in the habit of sharing your gratitude. This was something that surprised me as well. I kept it to myself pretty much, but once I started talking about it, and once I started labeling things and saying out loud, I am so grateful for that sunrise this morning. It just turned my whole attitude around. So when you start to tell others and you share your own experiences, that is another powerful high impact strategy as well. It is an amazing thing what happens when you're talking to others about your gratitude. It is an amazing thing. And so if you can, I mean, I'm a talker, obviously, you know that. But if you can start thinking about ways that you can share and talk about what you're experiencing, I mean, it doesn't have to be in front of a whole bunch of people, that's not necessary either. But sharing that out loud, it helps you really realize how much it means to you, which is an important reason for the why you're doing your gratitude practice. And start savoring life. Savoring is a very important word in my practice. And I haven't really, I'm still practicing, but I would say the last 5 years is when I really started to work on savoring life. Noticing. Example, up at the North Shore last week, and I was walking in the woods, and I'm kind of an amateur photographer. I love doing that now. So I have, my camera on. And I just walked up and back. And so I'm walking and I'm just looking at every little thing. And I just never did that before. It was all just, I got to walk up here, I'm going to walk back, and then I got to go back and do this and that and this. And I slowed my pace and I stopped and I looked up many times. I looked down many times. I looked behind me many times. And the things that you see when you stop and notice. There's these bushes that are in the woods and they have little red berries on them and they kind of hang. And I saw it, and then I didn't think anything more about it, but I'm going to look at that again. And you know what? They were hanging in the shape of a heart. They were 3 separate berries. I would have never noticed that before. So that noticing and savoring is so important as well. And then I walked back, same route, right? Totally different, because I'm walking on the other side and I'm seeing things over here that I didn't see before. And I stopped and I looked up and it was a different view. And I looked down and it was a different view. I mean, that sustained me for hours after that. So that noticing and being in tune with where you are is an amazing, amazing, amazing benefit for you. So noticing out loud is awesome too. I was getting ready to get on the computer tonight for this, and I looked out the sunroom window, and the sun was this big, bright orange ball, and it was so gorgeous. And I'm kind of, running around here and trying to get everything organized, and I thought, I've got to stop and look at this. And I went outside on our patio and I took a picture of it, and I just stood there and I thought, that is a gift. And that is so beautiful. And didn't last a long time. It doesn't have to last a long time. But if you notice something, think about it. Think about it, and then figure out why is that so interesting to me? Why did I stop and look at this? What is this about? What I'm curious about this. What makes you giggle? Figure out what makes you giggle and embrace it and learn it and love it. That's that savoring of life. Say thank you more. This was something that I was surprised by as well. when you thank people, some people are just not, whoa, they're surprised by it. And when I was a principal, I practiced this quite a bit because you like if like the custodian had to put away the chairs after concert in the evening, and I would hate that job, and I tried to help, but I didn't like putting away chairs. But I was so thankful that someone was doing it, and so I would say, thank you, Raleigh, for doing this. This is an icky job, and I really appreciate you. He said, I'm just doing my job, which was true, but he was doing his job. And sometimes that's not always a given. And I was intentionally trying to use the words thank you more often. My son-in-law says, when he's talking on the phone to someone, thank you, I appreciate you. Not I appreciate it. I appreciate you. Thank you. That's powerful. That's very powerful. You can use lots of opportunities. If you're in a school setting and you're in a meeting, you can start the meeting by talking about things that everyone's grateful for. I use this a lot in my principalships. Some people are not comfortable with it, and some people just want to get going. And that's okay. That's okay too. And we just learned to embrace it, and we made it a pattern, and it helped us kind of from the day and get ourselves started. You can do that at dinner. You can do, it's an amazing thing if you think about it. How many opportunities there are in our lives where we can share our thinking and our feeling about gratitude. And encourage others to share their gratitude and their notice it. What did you notice today that made you stop and think? What did you notice today that made you feel really good? Or what did you notice today that made you nervous or sad? I mean, once we start sharing and talking, the powerful connections that we can have together are so important for our colleagues, our family members, and our community. It's just a lot of synergistic energy that is powerful beyond measure. There's a gentleman, his name is Robert Holden. He's an author and a psychologist. And I found this quote just the other day, and I look at quotes fairly often. And this is what he said about gratitude that I just love. He said, the real gift of gratitude is that the more grateful you are, the more present you become. Okay, I'm going to read that again. The real gift of gratitude is that the more grateful you are, the more present you become. Like my walk in the woods, or the sun, the big orange orb tonight. It's a powerful, powerful thing. And I will tell you, it's like a testimony that it has changed my life, and it has helped me become a better receiver of things that come my way in my life. So I hope you enjoyed tonight. I hope you don't feel like it's another initiative. Things to think about in your life. I think I would like to, Shylla, I'm just talking with her on the phone. I think what I'll do is I will post my email on the Social Emotional Facebook site, so that if you wanted to get a hold of me, you wanted to talk with me, ask me questions, I'd be more than happy to do that. Shylla, if that's okay? Yes?
Yeah,
okay.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for your time.
Yes.
And I appreciate you coming on and sharing everything that you shared. And I had to mute it a few times. I was giggling. I can relate to your story.
I know, right? And Shylla said, about 20 minutes. And here I'm looking, it's 39 minutes and 9 seconds. So
that's okay.
Well,
well worth it. I didn't even notice that much time has gone by. So
okay.
Thank you so much.
So for all of those of you who are tuning in, I will put my email on the Facebook page, and I'd love to hear from you. I would love to hear from you, and we can chat and we can learn together. So thank you, everybody. Have a really good rest of the evening. Rest up. Thank you. I appreciate you for all you're doing in this crazy, crazy time in our lives. I think about you all the time, and I hope that you are hanging in there. It's challenging, it's difficult, but you are important. You are so important. You are so important. So, everybody, have a good night. We'll see you later. Thank you. Bye. Okay, now I'm going to end live. Okay.